Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a second submission by Stephanie of her horse Flynn. Now, this horse has made great progress since the last time I saw it, and so her questions are, is this horse ready to come up yet? How much more can she ask of the horse? This sort of thing. And she's had a little bit of problem keeping him consistent in the stretch. Now, having said that, once you're getting the stretch, it's really good. So just know that that's your goal every day. I mean, we never leave the ring until we get the horse stretched, at least in the walk. And then each day it will get better and better. So compared to what we saw in your first video, this is hugely improved. His back looks much better. His neck looks about a foot longer, actually. And we're beginning to see some filling there behind the saddle and some good work. So you are definitely on track. Now, a couple of things you might want to try with this horse, since you're having so much difficulty keeping it consistent in the stretch. You might want to try going to a shambone and lunging in a shambone, and you can even ride in the shambone for a little while. It wouldn't take long. So if you're really having a lot of trouble with the up and down, and every time you get a little something, he throws his head up in the air, you might want to try the shambone. It's a great way to go. It's the only device that we use that actually helps the horse. All it does is let the horse stretch out and forward and down and encourages that. So I would suggest that right off the bat, that you lunge him in the shambone a little bit and then ride him in a little bit, and I think you'd find this would come around very quickly. Now, however, if you don't do that, you are getting the job done over a period of time here, so that's okay. The only problem is that, you know, every step you take with the horse not in the right frame just means it's going to take that much longer to undo that. So that's why I would suggest just putting on the shambone for a little while, which will help you with all of his distracted. Now, you know, comparatively, this horse doesn't look that distracted compared to some that we deal with in terms of, you know, up and down and the difficulties that they have. When you're getting this horse there, he's looking quite nice. Now, is he ready to come up yet? Very much, I would say probably not. But, you know, we're still seeing a little bit of drop in the back. I'm still seeing the belly a little bit distended, though it gets better as it goes on here. But I think you've got a little bit of time ahead of you here before you're going to get too much into bringing him up too much in the frame. But what you're getting here in this stretch is absolutely beautiful. So if you can get that, which you didn't even come close to in the first tape that I saw of this horse, you know, this is a huge, huge improvement. But as I said, once again, if you're concerned about that and you want a little quicker, I would lunge him in the shambone, ride him in the shambone for just a few days, and you might just use it on and off occasionally if you feel like he's particularly distracted on a given day. But what I'm seeing here looks really good. I'm not seeing anything here that bothers me at all. I mean, you're getting him to a really good place. Of course, once again, the confidence just to keep doing what you're doing is always the hard part for people to realize how long it takes. You know, when they're ready to come up, they come up easily. It isn't a struggle at all. They just come up and stay in the same frame because they're able to. So pretty much that tells me, if he doesn't want to stay there, or if he really struggles when you try to bring him up, he's simply not ready to come up. But if you keep doing the work you're doing here like this, he will eventually be ready to come up. Just always remember that, you know, even under somebody like myself who's been doing this for years, it still takes a couple of years to get the top line consistent on a horse and to get those basics really, really correct. That's just simply what it takes. And if you read any of the great masters, they will tell you the same thing. Read Klaus Bachenhall or read the Spanish Riding School or any of these books by people who really are horse trainers and not just riding instructors, which is kind of what we saw a lot in dressage these days. But that's really a good stretch there. Really nice, down into it deep, swinging nicely over his back. So if you can get this horse is going to continue to improve immensely. Now you see right there it gets a little high, and you see how it gets a little inverted. Once again, I'm always watching the back legs. It's really not the front legs, the front end, so to speak. It's really what the back end is doing. And watch as he drops down, how the back end just immediately starts swinging deeper into the body. So that's, remember, what you don't want to lose. So as soon as you get the horse to the point where you can really stretch it consistently and you can really feel that rhythm, that's what you have to be attuned to, is how much whatever else you're asking the horse to do is altering that rhythm. And if it does, you have to go back to this, because that's a good working trot in the stretch for this horse. Remember, working trot means working over the back. So this horse is clearly working over his back here really nicely. Now, has he developed any thrust yet? No. By thrust, I mean that's the degree to which the horse pushes off the ground and actually lifts the front end off the ground as the horse trots. And you'll see that happen all by itself. You know, this idea that people have of today of, you know, pulling horses off their forehands is just completely absurd, because it doesn't work that way. Yes, you can pull a horse's neck in and make it snap its legs out, or make it snap its knees higher, its front legs, but it's the back end that we're talking about. When we speak about dressage, it's what the back end is doing is what's important. What the front end does is just relative to the horse's conformation and how correctly it's moving. but you've made huge strides in this horse. I mean, he looks so much better. Now you see already the belly starting to pull up a little bit. Now that's really good there. And once again, see every time he goes down how much improved the back end. It starts to swing a little better. But once again, as I said, if you're concerned about this and you want to speed up the process a little bit, I would suggest getting the shambone and lunging him in a little bit before you ride, or even just lunging in him before you ride and then ride, and I think you'd see that this will come around a lot quicker. But the amount of time you're telling me it's taking you, she said she rode the horse for about 8 minutes, getting him into the first stretch. She couldn't quite get it and came back to the walk to start again, and now she's getting it quite nicely. So, you know, that's not a long period of time. If you're getting this in that period of time, I think you're right on track there. Beautiful stretch in the trot here. But I wouldn't say he's ready to come up yet too far. Once again, usually by the time they're ready to come up, we begin to see a little more thrust. Once again, what I mean by thrust, when the horse is working over its back, what starts to happen is the horse pushes off the hind leg harder. It actually lifts the front end off the ground, and that's what creates lightness in the horse. Once again, something that could never be achieved by pulling back or holding against the reins. But when you're getting this, that's a good stretch in there. Liking everything that I'm seeing. And once again, you're doing a good job of just getting him back there once he does come out of it. Once again, as you said, it's a little inconsistent. But you are getting the job done. If you continue to get the job done like this, even if you don't go to the shambone idea, I think you're going to get to where you want to be. It's just a matter of having the patience to wait a little while longer to get it. So once again, as you bring them up, what we're looking for is that we don't see any change in the trot. We should see no change in the trot between the stretched position and the working trot position with the pole up. Good leg yield there, nicely kept in rhythm. Shoulder is leading accurately, very nice. That's exactly what we want to see. Always remember in the leg yields we have to have the shoulder slightly in advance, just like we do in the half pass as well when we get to that phase, because otherwise the horse will tend to hit its legs together. And if horses are hollow, that's one of the most telling things when you see hollow horses. If you watch Grand Prix and you see the ones that are really hollow and forced against the hand, you'll see that their half passes are very stiff, and usually the horses become very short-strided in the half pass. And you'll see actually how difficult it is for them to cross their legs over, because a hollow horse's hind legs are falling out behind, so it's very hard to reach under and through. Beautiful trot right here. That's exactly what we're looking for. Really good stretch, and I think that's where he needs to be right there. That's really nice. When you can see what happens as soon as that pole comes up, see how the hind leg stops moving. So there will come a time when you'll be able to bring this pole up and nothing will change. I mean, I've already seen a huge change in this horse compared to the first video that you sent. I suggest everyone go back and take a look at that if you want to make a comparison there for yourselves. Just to answer another question, just talking about this, she wants this horse to be a hunter, which is good. And once again, this foundation work is exactly what you'd want for that. In fact, if you go and read, you know, the manual of the American Horse Show Association, well, now the United States Equestrian Team, you'll see that their description of a hunter is basically the same as that of a first-level dressage horse. It's basically working over its back, coming through behind, well-developed. So there is no difference. A correctly trained horse, you know, it's not, you know, unless you're doing some altered form like a gaited horse or something like this, where you're actually degrading the horse's gaits in order to create artificial gaits. This is what you want, swinging over the back, and they will begin to improve. You know, once again, you see how he slowed down, how the hind leg slowed down there as the head came up, and as he goes down, once again, it swings through. So her question was, how soon can you begin to work this horse in flying changes, because you feel like she can't show the horse until it does flying changes. And there's nothing wrong with starting flying changes relatively soon, but never before you can do counter-canter. So the counter-canter always has to come before the flying changes. Now, there are hunter people who just teach horses to do automatic flying changes, and even though the horses are hollow or whatever, they just grill them and drill them until they do it automatically. The problem with that, then, is the horse changes whenever it wants to change, or every time you change direction. So that's why it's so important that you always do counter-canter first, because we want to be the ones who decide when the horse does flying changes, not just leave it up to the horse every time you change across a diagonal and hope that it happens, because, you know, generally speaking, it doesn't. And then if you go back trying to do counter-canter, horses that have been very ingrained in that kind of every time we change directions, you just automatically do a flying change, they become very difficult to do counter-canter with, and become very difficult to do any kind of tempi changes or anything like that if you have any interest in doing further work in dressage. Really good stretch here, but once again, everything I'm seeing here is really good. Now that's really good right there. So when you get to that point when you can just get the trot in this phase and then just gradually bring the pole up a little bit, that'll be where you want to be. And once again, see, even there he starts to slow down as soon as you touch those reins. So I think you'll find before he's ready to come up too far, you're going to have him a lot more consistent in the frame. That is, stretching, he's going to have to develop just a little bit more before we start to bring him up. And as I said, that'll start to come up without any tension and without any resistance, and he won't just go hollow every time. So you see even there, he's kind of midway there. But as he goes down, once again, look how the hock starts to work. As soon as the horse stretches into that contact, that's where you want him. So this is the most important thing that we get, what you're getting here. So just know that everything else comes from that, all the way to Grand Prix. There's not any time when we don't stretch horses. You know, if you watch our video from last week, Amber at the horse show, you'll see our whole goal at the horse show, which because he was so uptight, was just to get him to stretch down, because you'll never get the correct gaits. You'll never get really soft, supple gaits until the horse stretches first. Just like yourself going to the gym, you know, if you work out and you don't do any stretching, you know, lifting weights is going to make you very sore. Well, that's the point of the stretching. Same thing with the horse. You've got to get all the muscles working right and warmed up before you do anything too strenuous, or you will hurt yourself. Well, the same thing is true of the horses. Now that's not bad right there, though he's inverting the neck. You see it slowed down just a little bit. Yeah, and you see the neck starting to invert the other way a little bit. And you see how he's struggling. The rhythm isn't quite the same. So I think he's almost ready to be here, but not quite. Once again, you see how the behind legs started falling out. So once again, that has to be the guide, is whether you lose the trot. Now see, as he goes down there, that's the trot you want right there. Look how deep and swinging he is. So when you can keep that and bring the pole up, then he's ready to come up. If you can't, then he's not ready to come up. But he will in time if you keep doing this. Once again, I might suggest just, you know, working with a sham bone on a lunge line a little bit, and even riding a little bit might help you about this consistency part, and it will get there quicker. But from what I saw here, this really didn't take you that long. I mean, this was really quite good, and, you know, 8-minute warm-up to get him into a stretch after a little walk and trot. Yeah, same thing here. See how it slows down. He kind of inverts the neck a little bit. We don't have that nice swing. It's not terrible, but it's just not quite as good as it is in the stretch. And once again, that's what our goal is, to keep it the same all the time. But you're really turning this horse into a beautiful animal. As you said, you know, he wasn't an expensive horse, but you're making him into one. You know, in my career when I would fox hunt, you know, the people in the hunt field always thought I was very wealthy, you know, because I would have these fabulous horses. And I've never bought a horse in my life. Every horse I've ever had was given to me, so because someone else couldn't ride it, and I retrained it. There, nice canter. Good, I like how you got into it. Now what I really like is how in all your transitions you haven't tried to force the horse to stay in contact between the transitions, because once again, remember, the horse is never going to be good in the bridle until it's consistent in all three gaits, or in the two gaits. Like, in other words, the walk must be good and the trot must be good before you think that the horse is going to stay inconsistent in the bridle between. But that was really quite good. And really nice stretch, and look how much more active. Once again, that's what we're looking for. So that canter was good enough to be useful for the horse. Really good deep stretch here, really nice, keeping that active behind. You know, once again, when horses are very weak in the neck and have almost no neck, they will hang their necks almost straight down because there's no muscle on the top line. Now, this horse doesn't do that, but I'm just pointing that out. He seemed a little bit straight down there a little bit, but that's what happens. You know, they can't carry themselves up. As they develop more top line, the neck will just gradually come up all by itself, and it will hold itself up and out. But this is quite good here. And once again, good enough that that canter is really going to improve it. That's really, really nice right there. Now, that's a beautiful stretch in the canter. You've done a really great job with this. So what I'm seeing here is a horse that everything is on track. You've got all three gaits, you know, at least most of the time working correctly. So it won't be long before, once again, things like their transitions and the horse's ability to come up will just start improving and improving. But note for me that it's very often that we have horses, you know, at least for a year or a year and a half in stretching like this before we start to bring them up, before they're able to come up. And that's with me doing it. So once again, you know, I think you're right on track here, and you've done a wonderful job with this horse. Same thing here. You can see up high, everything kind of slows down. The back end kind of looks like it's falling out behind. You see how far the hind leg is going behind the body when you're there. Not that quite big swing. The hock isn't making that perfect circle that it was making when you had them all the way down the stretch like you have there. So we can see that, yes, the horse is still, once again, of course, when we first stretch horses, they're on the forehand. But the thing to remember, they're going to develop off of the forehand. A horse that's pulled in by the reins and snapping its knees up and hollow, a hollow horse is always on the forehand, no matter how high it brings its legs. Like a saddlebred, there's no moment of suspension in the trot. Horse always has 3 feet on the ground, even though it lifts its legs really high. Really good. So this has been a wonderful workout here. I really love everything that you're doing. You've done a great job with this horse. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Keep it up.